Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Life with Patty. And I am here this morning with a book review for you. And I have read this book twice now. The first time I read it probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I read it again because I belong to a book club online, and they picked this book. And I was like, you know what? This is such a good book that I will read it again. And I hardly ever read a book twice. But I did read this book again. And it is by the wonderful Ellen Marie Wiseman. It's called What She Left Behind. Ellen Marie Wiseman has become my favorite author. Her books are always kind of dark and sad, but there's so much history in her books. And they're always based off, not always, but the last few are based off of true stories and true places. And so let me read you the back of this, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. And I've come to the realization that I don't want to give you all of it away because it's such a good book, and you need to just go with it and learn as you read. So this is what the back says. 10 years ago, Izzy Stone's mother fatally shot her father while he slept. Devastated by her mother's apparent insanity, Izzy, now 17, refuses to visit her mom in prison. But her new foster parents, employees at the local museum, have enlisted Izzy's help in cataloging items at a long-shuttered state asylum. There amid piles of abandoned belongings, Izzy discovers a stack of unopened letters and a decade of old journals and a window into her own past. Clara Cartwright, 18 years old in 1929, is caught between her overbearing parents, and her love for an Italian immigrant. Furious when she rejects an arranged marriage, Clara's father sends her to a genteel home for nervous individuals. But when his fortune is lost in the stock market and it crashes, he can no longer afford her care, and Clara is committed to a public asylum, which is called Willard State Asylum, and it really is in New York State. And they didn't close it till like 1995. Yeah. Even as Izzy deals with the challenges of yet another new beginnings, Clara's story keeps drawing her into the past. If Clara was never really mentally ill, could something else explain her own mother's violent act? Piecing together Clara's fate compels Izzy to re-examine her own choices with shocking and unexpected results. So that is a good way of telling you about the story without telling you the whole story. But what I want to tell you is I never realized at state asylums, like mental and insane asylums is what they used to call them. I never realized how horrible they were, and how in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, they would tell the families, if you had a mentally ill child, a mentally delayed child, they would tell you it was for your own best interest to send your children to these asylums, and that they would be better taken care of there, and they wouldn't burden your life so much. And realistically, they were abused because they were neglected, but then they were abused also because the caretakers were mean. They were just mean to them, and they treated them worse than you would treat an animal, really. And before I read this book, I never realized how insane, crazy, mean, and horrible these places were. I had 2 cousins that were in mental asylums because they were mentally delayed. And now I think about it and I think, oh my gosh, this was back in the 50s, and they passed away in the 70s, but I was alive then. And to think that my cousins were in these places, but the doctors made the families think that was the best place to put them. So this story tells with Clara in the past, in the 20s and the 30s, and with Izzy, I think it takes place in like the 90s. But it gives you two different varieties of how things are in foster cares. And like, so Izzy gets a good foster family this time, but she didn't always get good foster families. Just like Clara might get one good nun in the whole asylum that was good to her. But I don't want to give away a lot of the story because I really, really, really like this book and I recommend it. And I would give it, I want to say a 4 out of 5. The first time I read it, I probably would have given it a 5 out of 5. But now I give it a 4 out of 5. And that's probably just because I reread it. But it is such a good book. And it has so much history to it. To things that you would think, oh my gosh, they couldn't really treat people like that. But they did. And it was sad. And so, yep, it's a short and sweet book review. It's a complete thumbs up with me. But I know that Nona Grace read The Orphan Collector, which I also read from this same author. And that was a good book as well. But this is one that I highly recommend. And after I read those books, I always have to read a really lighthearted book. So I read a Danielle Steele after this, which I will give a review about that one later. But it's just amazing how parents could do this to their children and how people can be treated in asylums, and how the ending of this story is amazing. Amazing. It is a perfect ending to a screwed up life for both these girls. So, yep, I highly recommend it. If you have read this book, let me know what you think about it. If you haven't read this book and you do read it, let me know what you think afterwards. I'm sure you can check this out at your local library. You can do this on e-read, or you can buy the book like me. I like to have the actual book. And I don't always keep all my books, but I will keep all my books from Ellen Marie. And I loaned them out to somebody, and they never gave them back to me. So now I have to rebuy them, and I'll probably reread them. So, okay, you guys. Well, that is my book review for today. I hope you have a great day, and I shall talk to you guys again later. Bye-bye.